Today we're joined by guest Alex Alonso out of Miami, Florida. And Alex is a retired marketer turned interior designer. And he is the head principal designer of Mr. Alex Tate out of Miami. And he has some terrific advice on how he grew his firm and the marketing journey he took from being a little baby designer to the killer interior design firm he is now. Stay tuned. Hey kids, and welcome to Designed by Wingnut Social. I'm your host, interior decorator Darla Jethro Powell, and we're coming at you recorded, not live, from Southern Maryland, just 90 minutes south east of DC. Hell if I don't know. Geography was never a good subject. But we have a good show for you today, guys. Today we have Mr. Alex Tate himself, Alex Alonso, from Miami, Florida, my old stomping grounds. I was there for 52 years of my life, and I miss the Cuban food. It's like you do not know. It's some of the best cuisine on the planet right there. So he and I had a discussion about that in the green room, and I am hungry right now as I record this. God, I would literally kill right now for some good Cuban food. But anyway, in this conversation, he and I go over his journey marketing Mr. Alex Tate. You can follow him on Instagram at Mr. Alex Tate out of Miami, Florida. He's been incredibly successful, and not by accident. He's been very strategic with his marketing plan on digital, on the social media, SEO, Google, hiring a PR firm. And he walks us through how, when, and why he did all of that and the strategy and theory behind that. And I think you're going to find that very helpful. But before we get into this conversation with Mr. Alex Tate, I got to tell you about him. Cuban born, Alex grew up under insanely humid Miami days. I miss him, Alex. I miss him. After attending Northwestern University and working in advertising in Chicago, Alex moved to Los Angeles, where he worked in the entertainment industry for many years. All along, he perfected his craft and his true passion, interior design. Alex's travels have taken him across 5 continents and have functioned as a constant source of inspiration for his designs. He is a voracious collector, and he is drawn to anything with a story. True marketer, market at heart. Wingnuts, help me in welcoming Alex Alonso to the show. Hey there, Mr. Alex Tate. Welcome to the show. How the hell are you?
Good. How are you? Nice to be here.
I'm so excited to have a fellow Miamian here on the show. We were just, chatting in the green room about how much I miss Florida. You're so lucky.
I know. I don't want to rub it in, but yeah, weather's beautiful today.
Well, yeah, it's raining here. It's actually raining here today. I was going to say it's beautiful here too. And then I was like, no, I can't lie. In Southern Maryland. But you know what I miss the most about Miami? We're talking about in the green room is just the food, the Cuban food, the different varieties of cuisine. I have KFC and Taco Bell here where I am.
Check, we got that too.
And a couple of sports bars. Yeah. Probably what's helped with the extra 40 pounds on me. All right. So Mr. Alex Tate, Alex Alonso, we are going to talk today about your experience with marketing your interior design firm, which is actually called Mr. Alex Tate, right? So, and because you have a very interesting background for an interior designer, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I was born in Miami during the 80s, which was an amazing time to have been born and grown up here, right?
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. And heaven knows, I think the 80s are making a full round in design. But, I always thought I was going to be an engineer, to be quite honest with you. I wanted to do the whole Disney Imagineering. I want to create experiential rides and kind of have those 5 senses, when you're experiencing something. And so I went away to college to study that. And within the first year, I decided it was the most horrible thing that I could have ever been subjected to. But I was fortunate enough that I was in Chicago at a College of Arts and Science school as well that had some pretty other great areas to study. So I left engineering, but didn't pursue design immediately, but instead got into media and marketing immediately after college. It was on-campus recruiting. I had no idea what I was doing. It sounded like it was a little bit creative, a little bit analytical, and that was kind of right up my alley. I did that. Was fortunate enough to move out to Los Angeles when that agency won business out there. They were setting up in another office. And who doesn't want to live in LA when you're in your 20s, right? I mean, it
for
sounds
sure.
pretty great, especially when someone else moves you out there. And eventually, as luck would have it, if you live in Los Angeles at some point or another, you're going to work in entertainment. And I was lucky enough that I worked for a major studio, and I was heading up the marketing there for about 8 years. And that was fantastic. I mean, that was an amazing experience to just kind of really understand how not just the media works, right? How do you buy and plan media? How you get your message out there, but how do you actually put a brand together? And how do you build something from nothing? And then how do you go out there and promote it across all these different channels? So when the time came, as it does for many of us who've worked in Hollywood, when it kind of kicks you off that train and you have to decide whether you want to race after and get back on or just do your own thing, I realized that I'd always been so interested in design. I'd always been doing it on the side that it's either now or never, right? It came a little bit later in life for me, but no complaints. I take the opportunity when it comes.
You're so young, though.
46.
Oh, that's young. That's young.
Please. You should talk to some of the people in my office. They think that I'm old enough to be their parent. It's crazy. They make you feel so old, but it's okay. I still control their paycheck. But so it was time, right? And so I think I spoke to my husband. I was just like, I think this is the moment where we do this, right? Where at least I should do this. And having taken all that corporate experience, all that media, that marketing background, I knew that I could set up a business in a way that I thought was something that I could be proud of, number one, but number two, that I think that we could run and make it profitable, right? Whether anyone liked my designs, that's a different story, right? At least I knew the back end office we could take care of. So, and I'll tell you, it took us about a year. It took us about a year before I actually started promoting the brand, because it literally took me a long time to put it all together. Yeah.
You were doing the design and then you promoted it afterwards, or that's just when everything came together at once?
Yeah. So we registered the business.
Okay.
And then really it took me a good 10 to 12 months before we actually started marketing it with any social, any print, any digital advertising. Yeah. I wanted to make sure that we had, first of all, you have to have your processes in place, right? And whether those processes work or not, you don't know until you launch it, but at least you have to have the background set up and the foundation for it. And then we also set up the branding and the brand itself. What did we want to call this thing? How did we want to posture ourselves? What was our logo? Our font, all the documents that go along with when you talk to a client. We took a good 3 to 4 months talking about what we call the client journey, right? So the moment a client sees your name or your brand somewhere, right? What's your next step? How do you respond to that? Right? Is it an email? Is it a document? Is it a call? So we literally map this thing out from the point that someone reaches out to you to the moment you sign a contract. And at every touch point, we wanted to make sure that we had, something that was tangible that they could walk away from to say, like, okay, great. At this stage, you get this. At that stage, you get that. So all of that took a very, very long time. And then you launch it, you put it together, you launch it, and then hopefully the phone call starts coming in, and then you test all that stuff, right? It's all theory up until the first person calls.
If I can interrupt you really quick, I love that you did this. It's almost the exact reverse of what I did, because it really is. I just started social media marketing and they just started responding, the clients, and I was like, oh, I have to have my systems and processes and stuff. So I kind of did it backwards, but that's where I learned how impactful the digital realm was marketing. And you may have some other things you want to talk about here, but that with your marketing experience, you already kind of knew that this is going to be impactful. This is going to work. So when these people do start responding to my marketing, I need to have all my ducks in a row to fulfill the leads and the generation coming in. So I love that. That's really a smart way to do it. And you took your time to do it and to do it right. So let's talk about the first marketing efforts that you did to get the word out there for Mr. Alex Tate, your design firm. What were some of the steps that you took? I had someone today ask me, we were doing a free webinar for the six keys to success on Instagram. You guys head over to our Instagram page to find out some more about that. And someone questioned me in there, said, for a beginning designer, where would you recommend to invest your marketing efforts in the beginning stages of that? So let's talk a little bit about that journey. And of course you have an advantage, you're a marketer, but where dollars to the, on the pavement or however that goes, where did you first invest, to get the word out?
Yeah. So I always think it's important to dump your dollars when it comes to media in things that are measurable, right?
Okay.
In channels that are measurable and that you can continue to optimize. And really what I mean by optimize is change it quickly if it's not working. If you're not seeing
Yeah.
any traction, change it and try something else, right? So you've got to go with media channels that have a very low cost of entry.
Right.
A lot of, I mean, listen, when you open up your business, you're going to get calls from print magazines, local ones, regional ones, whatever. You're going to get people trying to sell you ads in like Golf Digest little things and like
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff, right? The reality is you want to be able to control your narrative and your brand as much as possible. And, you know, typically that starts with social media, whether it's your Instagram, whether it's, I mean, I would say Pinterest is probably not the first place that I would go to be quite honest with you.
Same. Yeah, that's true.
I think it's great once you've got great portfolio and content, you can just post stuff up there. But I think your first place is to really just do something like Instagram, be smart about it. Make sure you've got a very curated, a very defined look of how you want people to see you and interpret you as. Because I think if you're all over the place, you know, it's going to be a little bit chaotic. But it doesn't always necessarily need to be original content, right? You could repost other people's work that you like and that you admire, and then try to game the system that way a little bit.
So let's talk about that a second, because I know that a whole bunch of hackles just arose in the podcast land, because we have interior designers that are super cool with that, and of course there's courtesies and acknowledgments and credit you have to give when you do post aspirational or inspirational work. So let's talk a little bit about that. How are you navigating, or you're probably not now because you have tons of original work and you're super successful. His work is beautiful, by the way, guys, go check that out. Mr. Alex Tate on Instagram. So when you were posting inspirational, aspirational work for your account, how did you navigate that?
So the first thing I always did was I reached out to the account holder and I said,
100%.
hey, love your work. We're thinking of doing, you know, a little post on 5 colors that we're loving this season, right? And we love the way that you used purple, whatever.
Sure.
And then you say, is it okay if I tag you in it, if I mention you in it and things like that? For the most part, unless there's someone who's got like 50 million, you know, followers, at which point, what's the point of touching them? You know, they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to be humble. You have to be courteous about it. And you can't take it personally, you know, because some people are just going to say no. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with completely sliding into someone's DM in a very nice sort of way and just say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. And give them your story. Give them like your 2-minute byline, right? That's what I learned in entertainment, right? You've got that elevator speech. You've got like, who are you? What are you going to do? What do you want? You know, it's like, make sure it's quick, simple, and it's approachable.
Yeah. And I love that. And so as a marketer, the benefit of doing that is one thing. If you're a beginning designer and you don't have a lot of your original work, it shows the work that you want to do and the work that you potentially are capable of doing, hence, you know, the term aspirational. But it's a mutually beneficial arrangement in that you're helping to create traction for that account, but you're growing their brand reach and awareness by getting more eyes on their account, and vice versa, right? If you're sharing their stuff, you're building those connections and networking. But there are those designers out there who refuse to do it, who won't do it, and who actually hear anyone talk about it, they spontaneously combust.
Yeah, I know.
Which is fine. That's perfectly fine. 2 schools of thought, and that's fine if that's the way you want to do it. But you are leaving some brand reach and awareness on the table.
And
you
concur? And I would say to those folks who are completely against it, get over it. Honestly, like get over it. I know folks who've got 50 and 100,000 followers on Instagram, and they're still doing it. Right. Because it's a community, right? It's a community of designers.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think you need to celebrate good design. If it appeals to you, and you also want to be associated with designers that you have a similar sort of point of view with. And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, I think that's how you create community. That's how you can create camaraderie and best practices and sharing. Honestly, it feels like it's a win-win unless you're going to be trash talking someone or just saying like, oh, I would have done it like this.
Well, let's hope.
I mean, then
never
you're just
do that,
being a jerk. I mean, it's just like, you know, I would have done it with purples and greens instead of purples and yellows. I mean, who cares? Like,
look at this crap design.
Right.
Let's hope nobody's doing that. That would be egregious. Every now and then I'll run across a designer who will ask us about our services, and I notice that they're posting work that isn't theirs and they don't attribute it to anybody. And I can't even deal with that. So definitely Don't be that. Yeah, definitely, Tacky. Don't be that person.
Well, and also I would say, think about if someone did that to you. How would you feel if someone did that to you? I mean, like if someone just ripped your stuff off and didn't cite you or source you in it, I mean, that's not good luck.
Yeah, terrible. And I love that you said that it's community. It is a community, and the rising tide lifts all boats. But that being said, there's a little caveat in there: is if you're an interior designer in Miami, like Susan McNuggets or yourself, you might not want to post or share work from your direct person that could take business away from you, because at the end of the day, it is business. So you have to be a little strategic and, smart about it in that way. It is a business at the end of the day. Okay. So social media, 9 times out of 10, our clients are on Instagram. Our primary Instagram is their bread and butter. That's where they're getting clients. That's where they're getting DMs. That's where they're getting their growth. Are you finding the same thing for your firm? Is Instagram? Okay.
Yeah. It's still pretty strong. I mean, we still, at this point, we get a lot of referrals.
Nice.
And a lot of organic, but yeah, we'll probably get an Instagram referral like a couple times a month.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Okay. That's terrific. Yeah, for sure. And you're not a Wingnut client, but we have had many guests on who get their DMs or get their clients from Instagram, from their Instagram marketing source. Okay. So social media, what's another channel? I'm so social focused. I'm like, is there anything else?
Yeah.
Are we going to billboards? What's next?
So for me, so we actually hired an agency. So early on, I knew that whereas I knew that I could play with Instagram, I knew that I could play with Facebook, I could, whatever. I had a general competency for those things. It changes so fast.
Yeah.
And there's so much details into it that you need someone to kind of really take the reins on that. But beyond that, if you want to stay competitive, AdWords, or pay-per-click and things like that, is still critically important at the local level, right? So for that, it was one of those things where I had worked and done some Google AdWords and training, and I kind of knew how it generally worked, but I wasn't about to spend 10 hours, every 2 days trying to figure out and optimizing this. So we set out to hire an agency, and we did an RFP. We did a very simple RFP, a request for proposal, and we surveyed a few agencies. We honestly Googled, and we tried to find agencies who worked with small businesses, right? Because we're not McDonald's, we're not Macy's. We don't have, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars in budgets. Right. So you need to make sure that you're finding someone who has worked with your budgets, perhaps in your category, which is hard, right? Yeah. Not a lot of people, not a lot of agencies just dedicated to interior designers.
Yep. I know one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. But that have not done, that have the competency in doing it and know the regional level of, of like getting in there. So we did our homework. It took us about 3 months to find the right agency to handle our pay-per-click and our optimization of our website and all that good stuff. And then we knew it was going to be a risk. Right. We identified a budget early on of what we knew we could spend for that full year. We discussed it with them. Is this enough? Is this not enough? What are the terms? Should we do it 6 months at a time? So we went through all that. And we've had them now for, I want to say 5 years. And
wow. Great.
We've seen them get smarter in interior design, right? Because they had a lot more builders and, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And they're actually based out of Texas. And we've also gotten smarter. So I think it's been mutually beneficial. And that's the other thing that I would say is, whereas I love being able to, being able to zig and zag and things like that and optimize your budgets. If you don't need to, you cut it here, you put it there, whatever. Right. You do have to give things time to mature and breathe. And you can't just be so reactive like that. It takes a minute.
I'm so glad that you said that, because in market, it does take a minute. And if you're expecting whether you're hiring an agency or you're doing it yourself, to have people busting down your door in a month, 3 months, even 6 months or a year, sometimes it's not going to happen. You have to be patient, because and it's the same thing, It's same thing that happened with me with Wingnut. People weren't busting down my door within a year or 2 years. It's just putting out the content marketing, and building that authority in the space, and then the know, like, and trust. And now they kind of are. Right. I've had to put an extra screw on the door or an extra bolt on the door, but it wasn't overnight. We've been at this for 5 years doing this. So, but everything, all the blood, sweat, and tears, and all the investment that we put into the marketing up until then, 100% worth it.
Yep.
So the clients that have been with Wingnut Social who have been the most successful are the ones who've been with us the 2, the 3, and I think we have a couple maybe going on 3.5, 4 years now. So and as they're growing and changing their strategy, we're adapting and changing with them in the marketing, and those are terrific relationships. Your firm is very lucky to have you.
And so the one thing I would say to that also is, in order to find the right partner, you've got to also understand what you're looking for, right? And I know it's really hard if you don't have a marketing background, right?
Yeah.
So you have to find someone, if you don't know a lot, or if you're new to media and marketing and social and everything, you need to find someone who is going to be patient with you during that learning curve, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes people will say, "Oh my God, I just gave you all this money and nothing's happening," and you're just like, "Well, you gave me zero content, or it's poorly shot, or So there needs to be this there's an onus also on us giving you the money, as an agency, to say, like, this is the best work we've got, and you've got to be honest about it. We don't have a lot of content. We don't anticipate having more for another 6 months or whatever the case may be, because everything's taking longer or whatever. Can you do something with this? And I think you just need to be extremely honest and transparent about that, because it helps us set expectations about what the end result is going to be, what the relationship is going to be like, right? I think on both ends. And I think that's critically important, because I can tell you the amount of content we had 5 years ago in terms of portfolio work versus what we have now is night and day.
Right.
And there were different price points, right? So it was completely different portfolio of work back then than it is today. So
yeah, for sure. If an agency is spending time sourcing, UGC content or getting permissions from other designers to share the work and stuff, that is a lot more time consuming for sure. So you do kind of have to know the scope. And to your point, a lot of, especially in the interior design world, although I do think that the designers and architects are getting a little bit more savvy with the marketing piece, and especially on the digital end, they don't really know what they don't know to expect and how marketing works. So there is a huge educational component on the agency side, to your point about being patient and working and educating the interior designer. I do love that you said that. So AdWords, Google AdWords. So for people, are they still calling them Google AdWords? I think they've changed. I don't do a lot. I don't do a whole hell of a lot of them. My director does. Taylor Garrity does those. But how in depth were you in that realm as far as targeting like the Miami audience? And would you say that would be secondary to the social? And then I want to ask you about paid social.
Yeah. So that would be right now. We're doing a lot more on the pay-per-click side, on the SEO and SEM, than we are on our social spend.
Okay.
Because we've been branching out into other territories, and so we've been allocating dollars to different markets. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, we had an interesting project in the Caribbean early this year. So that kind of opened up another opportunity for us to test an international market. So we're allocating dollars towards different markets, and we've had projects in Boston and projects in DC and projects in Salt Lake City and Phoenix. So we're constantly kind of, siphoning off a little bit of dollars here and there. So that's why that's kind of ballooned a little bit.
Are you doing any paid advertising campaigns on social in that regard? With geotagging and making, okay. And how are you finding that?
Yeah, so we'll do a few here and there for like the right projects, to be quite honest with you. The other thing for us is that not that there's any seasonality to design, if you will, but we look at our portfolio of work and when things are going to be photographed and shot. And then we look at it and we say, like, we definitely want to add some dollars behind this, right? Because these are really strong. They really represent the brand. It's a full house tour. It's something like that. And then obviously we have to then coordinate that with our PR agency to make sure that hasn't been promised to a publication or something like that. So there's a lot of that going around as well. So so our media mix has actually is quite diverse at this point, right? So we've got some social and social advertising that we'll do. We'll do our pay-per-click. We obviously have a PR agency that also helps us, run that whole side of the business. So there are a lot of different elements in the media mix right now.
What would you say to a beginning interior designer who is just getting in, or maybe a year or two designer, if they were to ask you, how much should I spend a month or a year on marketing? What would, I know, right? That's a tough one. I mean, I have a formula kind of, but when you're new, you don't really have a gross income to base it off of. Yeah.
Right. So I would say it really depends on your market, right? And how competitive your city is where you're doing work. But if the content is good, depends also how much you've got, how many ads you intend on doing that month. Yeah. I typically would try to do, when I first started, I would try to do at least 2 ads and see which one performed better, right? Like an A and a B test.
Sure.
And I would probably allocate like $100 against it for a couple of weeks, and then each one of those and just see how it did. Again, this was 5-7 years ago, so it might be a little bit more expensive now. But I think if you're spending anything, whatever you can afford, I wouldn't overextend yourself. That's the other thing too. Like, you don't want to get into all this stuff. So if you test a couple things and you just find that you're overwhelmed or you just don't know, that's when you start picking up the phone and you start calling our friend over here on the other.
That's when you call Wingnut Social. Right? So, which is, it's better to delegate that kind of thing, especially, even 5 years ago or 4 years ago at your level, being the face and the founder of your firm and the principal. So there's the word I'm looking for. Your hourly is a lot more well suited to you being the rainmaker and doing the design work and doing the picture high dollar stuff than it is sitting and fiddling around on Instagram or on Google ads, right? For sure. And we would tell design clients to come to us at Wingnut for the marketing when we're talking about the paid part of social. They bristle a little bit. Oh my gosh, delegating it out is already an investment. Now I got to pay for ads too, because above and beyond organic, it just helps to facilitate and hasten some of that brand reach and awareness and getting eyes on your account. But we're talking 25, 50, $100. Yeah. Nothing crazy to put a little bit of paid spin behind those posts that are doing really well. It can make a huge difference. So Absolutely. You're right. You don't have to go crazy in the beginning and just test it and see what's working, what isn't, pull it back, try something else.
To that point, I think that's kind of why you hire someone to do it. You need a recommendation. You need someone who does this day in and day out and who knows the market, right? Because sometimes I think when we first started out, like we had for Google AdWords at the time, let's say maybe we had like $800, and they're like, "Oh, honey, $800 isn't going to do anything in Miami for you," and you're just like, "Okay, then
you won't even show up." Yeah.
Right? Then maybe I need to pause for just a minute until I've built my coffers a little bit, and then have enough for them to play with. So there's a lot of that. There's really you need to take a moment and you need to look at folks who can really recommend and kind of guide you and steer you in the right direction. And so it's critically important. So when someone comes to you, right, over at Wingnut, you're going to be spending their dollars like if it was your own money, right? Yeah. You're not just like, oh, I know that they're sitting on a lot more. Like, no, you're going to have a frank conversation. This is what this will probably get you based on your experience. Don't expect anything more or anything less than that, and you set expectations as best you can, right? So
100% for sure. And you're right. $800 gets you nothing in Miami. Miami's even when I was with Howls, I did Howls Pro for a minute. I don't know if you've ever done that, but they sell you like certain areas, and even that was crazy. Miami's such a competitive market. Yeah. So do you do any analog marketing for your firm right now? You did mention the PR side. Is that your effort as far as exposure in magazines and et cetera? Or what else did they handle for you?
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing. When you think about what you want to get out of your ad dollars, that whatever you're spending, whether it's social, whether it's print, whether it's AdWords, whatever the case may be, radio, I don't know. Does anyone listen to that anymore? I don't know. But sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to do this ad in this monthly magazine and people are going to call me.
Yeah, no.
That's not going to happen just because you pick up a magazine all the time and you probably read it and all that good stuff. So that's more of like a branding play, right? That's just kind of saying like, hey, this brand exists out here. It's like,
we're here. Think about us someday in the future. At some point,
it's a longer lead sort of return, right? So I think if you're early on, you're looking for those calls. You're looking for those quick calls. So you focus on whatever's going to drive a lead. And driving a lead is anything from a Google AdWords or a cost per click or a social, social promotions and things like that will really kind of drive your DMs. But things like, print, things like outdoor or flyers or mailers and all that good stuff, even though they can be quite captive, right? In terms of like, doing a direct mail piece.
Yeah.
It's not going to give you that immediate, you're not going to, and you're also not going to be able to measure how effective it was because it is a bit of it's a legacy media. So, right. So all the metrics aren't necessarily there. So you won't necessarily results, but maybe someone will call you 6 months down the road, like they'll say, I saw your ad in this magazine.
Yeah, you're right. That is a long-term play. And I see a lot of designers will ask me, hey, Architectural Digest wants me to be in the magazine. And initially I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And it's only $3,000.
Right.
Don't do that.
And I'm like, do you have $300,000 in your bank account right now? Then sure, go for it. It's like,
yeah, true.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Because getting in a magazine like that, you're right, is not going to get, I can't tell you how many designers have said, I did this advertorial, or I was featured, and nothing, I thought my phone would be ringing off the hook, and that did not happen.
Yeah.
But if you layer those experiences,
exactly.
if you get organic press, or you have a PR firm that's getting you the press, and and you layer those, and you build that background and build that backbone of expertise and talent, and you're the go-to, 3, 4, 5 years, right? Pays off in spades. It pays off.
And to that point, I didn't hire a PR agency my first, my second, or my third year.
Okay.
Right. I hired an agency further in.
Okay.
Because I also knew that I needed a really good portfolio of work that was magazine worthy. Right. Yeah. Or that I would even want to share to a PR agency to rip it apart and tell me like, this ain't good. It's got to be really, really good. Right. And it was when we finally had those, $1 million projects, those $750,000 projects, those $2.5 million projects that you're just like, okay, these should be somewhere. Right. And again, that's kind of a different area that kind of we're competing in. Right. I'm not saying you have to wait till your budgets are that big to get there. Right. Every city is different. And there's a lot of regional and local press that can also do a lot of heavy lifting for you. Yeah. Right. And so a good PR agency will help you identify those. If you don't stumble on it yourself at a cocktail party or networking somewhere,
I love that you had that restraint to know, okay, maybe my projects aren't quite at the PR level, but then as soon as you were starting to get there, like, okay, now it's time to pull the trigger. You're very smart with your timing. You're very patient. I tend to be like, I want to do it tomorrow. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have waited.
I think I spent my money on everything else, probably like shirts and, shoes. And I was like, oh, damn, can't do it this month. It's like...
Right. I know. I spent mine on action figures for sure. All right, Alex. So we know that you have a very healthy marketing synergy going on. You got your PR, you got your social, you got your Google ads. At what point can you kind of back off on that and take a break and stop your marketing efforts for a while and maybe save that investment?
So you never put your foot off the pedal. I mean, I think it's just a matter of, you always want to have something going in the background, right? And I think, so for us, we always have some level of social and some level of, of AdWords spend, right? Just because we know that churns, you can decrease the investment, right? But if you've seen that giving you some momentum, you let it ride. What I would say is we will see some seasonality, for example. Like, we know we're probably not going to be taking new clients, the last quarter of the year. Because so you might pull back on your ad spend during those months because people are focused on other things, and it becomes extremely expensive anyways to be spending your dollars out there, right, for those eyeballs. So you kind of just have to ride that market a little bit in that capacity. So we find ourselves that we stay pretty strong always in terms of like social and then some of our AdWords and things like that. But then during the holidays, we bring it back down a little bit. We let the PR perhaps kind of look for a little bit more things that might give us hits, like editorials or listicles or things like that. And we try to like work our way into those. And so it's really more of just pacing the market and kind of seeing where you probably need. But again, a good media partner will help you identify that. And then that's why it's important, like we've been talking about, that you need to have some level of consistency. You can't just try for 2 weeks. They're like, oh my God, Wingnut was horrible. I can't, they didn't get me those 30,000 clients I expected I was going to get. And you're like, okay, well, you're crazy. You were never going to get those. But if they've worked with you for 2 to 3 years, and it's like, hey, I've noticed a pattern in your business, right? And I think patterns are really, really important. And you kind of also, as a business owner, you also kind of get that gut that it's like, people don't really call during X months, right? They may be, getting their kids off to school,
the
or
summer
they may be,
and the holidays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. When the site slows down a lot in the summer, when people are on vacation and in the holidays. And it's so funny that you said that we actually have had a client quit after 2 weeks. And it's been like, oh my God. And I'm telling you, this is just, I'll dish. I won't mention any names, of course, but we've already got them. I think we got them 1,000% more website visits, and their metrics were already starting to improve, and they just kind of panicked, and they were like, "Oh no, you're not doing this." I'm like, "Oh my goodness, okay, well, sorry that didn't work out."
Oh, you should have fired him anyways.
It may have gone down that road anyway, but yeah. But yeah, it's just, you have to be realistic with it and the time and the investment, and it isn't an overnight thing. But when you get to the point to where you've stuck with it and been disciplined, such as you have with your firm, you reap the benefits. So you have to be patient.
And that's I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is an investment, right? And so whether listen, money is relative. Whether you have $50,000 to spend against it, 500 or 5 million, it's all relative to your business, right? When I was on the agency side, we had clients who had, $50 million to put against media, and then some who had 500,000. We treated them the same way, right? It was just, you had to take into perspective. But I think that's why you need to make sure that you are working with someone who understands your business as well and is taking the time to do that. But expectations from the get-go are so critically important, because if it was easy, I wouldn't be calling you. You know what I'm saying? Like it would just sell itself. It's just kind of like, oh my God, you're so great.
And it's so hard to keep up with. I can't tell you how many advertising companies and Adweek and TechCrunch and Social Media Examiner, and that you have to go in and each week and just self-educate yourself and go to meetings and webinars to just stay on top of all of it. It's 1 week, it's one thing, and the next week the algorithms change. We're constantly, testing posts, testing where the hashtags go, testing where the comments go, testing carousels, testing reels. It's insane. It really is, but I love it. Alex, this has been a terrific insight. Your firm, beautiful work.
Thank you.
Your success is crazy. I love it. You guys need to go and check out Mr. Alex Tate on Instagram. Is that, Mr. Alex Tate. I was making sure I had it right, because and then you have your name in the underscore. Alejandro.
Yeah.
Alejandro. I have to ask you now, are you ready for the What Up Wingnut round?
Oh, always.
What would the hashtag on your tombstone be?
Oh, that's an easy one. Curate fearlessly. Yeah.
I have to say that I think that that's one of the best hashtags that we've ever had on the show.
Oh,
I love that.
Thank you.
You're stuck on a deserted island, but you can have your one favorite food. What is it?
Oh, geez, you're going to give me pause. I know this is going to sound ridiculous. Pancakes. Now,
that doesn't sound ridiculous.
Not just any pancakes. Has anyone ever had Aretha Frankenstein pancakes?
I can honestly say I have not. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You will never eat another pancake the same way again. It's amazing. It's a mix. You buy it on anywhere, Amazon, wherever it is you want. It's amazing. It's fantastic.
What is it? What's in an Aretha Frankenstein pancake?
Well, so the powder in the mix is obviously a secret formula, but you do add a little bit of vegetable oil. You add an egg. You add it's the fluffiest things you've ever tasted.
Okay.
I don't know. I can eat it every day, all day.
We'll have to try that. And last but not least, please recommend a book that has impacted you either personally or professionally.
Okay, so book, I'm going to be a little nerdy. I'll give you a book and I'll give you a movie, just because I think I'm a movie guy. But
me too.
Books, I would say on the business side, The Luxury Strategy. It's by Bastian and Cartfer or whatever. I don't know. It's a horrible last name. He should have changed it for the book. But it's a fantastic book, and it's been put into several editions. And it really kind of helps to frame the conversation about what is luxury and what isn't luxury, and aspirational brands and all that. It was so helpful to me when I first read it many years ago, that I still find it so relevant today. It talks about brands that are entering the market that consider themselves luxury versus legacy brands that are, so it's a great book. It's called The Luxury Strategy. And the movie, and this is where I'm going to be just like a kid, it's E.T. Oh my gosh. It was the first movie I saw in the movie theater when I came from Cuba. I was born in Cuba. And it was E.T., and it was just, anything was possible when I saw that movie. Like it just kind of like, it blew my mind. And I still love it till this day.
That's a terrific movie. I love that. I love my go-to as a kid is The Empire Strikes Back, but E.T. was terrific. I was obsessed with Han and Leia.
Oh, who was it?
I was in junior high school.
Blondes,
let's don't talk about that anymore. Okay, so The Luxury Strategy: Break the Rules of Marketing to Build Luxury Brands by Jean-Noel Kapfer and Vincent Bastian.
That's the one.
All right, that's the one. That is the one for sure. Okay, so guys, run out. I already put that on my Audible queue right there. So I will be checking that out. Alex Alonso, please tell the Wingnuts listening where they can go to find out more about you and your firm, and we will call it a day.
Absolutely. We are at MrAlexTate.com. We're in Miami, but we will travel if there's a project that needs our help. But I will say, if you want to find us on Instagram and just shoot me a DM or whatever, if you have any questions, I'm kind of like an open book. You know, as long as you don't ask me what my fees are, I will tell you anything. I will tell you my husband's pants size and his shoe size and his social security number, but definitely not mine.
I got nervous there for a second. But not your rates. Okay, got it. That makes perfect sense. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You're a terrific guest.
Thank you so much.
I don't know about you guys, but I love to hear individual interior designers' journeys from beginning to where they are now, the success of their firms. I just love it. I find it incredibly inspirational to hear everybody's individual path, their successes and their failures. And Alex Alonso did not disappoint. And his marketing journey from being a marketer professional in the in the entertainment industry, I found incredibly compelling. And I love that he didn't blow any smoke. This is what he did. This is why he did it. He didn't even try to get delusions of grandeur within the first 2 or 3 years of his firm to hire PR, because he knew he wasn't quite there yet. But he did it with a plan. He had goals. He did it with a plan, and he executed it. And I'll tell you, folks, his success. First of all, he's an incredibly talented interior designer. Go to Designed by Wingnut Social on the YouTube channel to see some of his work sprinkled in by my producer during this interview, or just go to his website, MrAlexTate.com, or his Instagram at MrAlexTate, and look at his work. Very talented designer. But there's a ton of talented interior designers out there, and Alex is special, clearly. But his marketing piece was no small part in that. And you have to keep that mindset that when you are a principal designer, an owner of an interior design business, yes, it's creative. And yes, we're doing what we love, but it's also a business. And you have to put on that hat. You have to put on that business hat and that marketing hat. And remember at the end of the day that it is a business. And because he is a marketer, he was able to take a lot of that on in the beginning. But even now he delegates it, to his PR firm, to his marketing agency, because he's the principal of the firm and ain't nobody got time for that. So just keep that in mind. The marketing piece is incredibly essential to getting your firm out there and to finding your ideal clients and to being discovered. There's a lot of noise out there in the interior design space. So you definitely want to stand out and be found by your ideal clients. Good on you, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And remember, here's a segue for you. If you need help with marketing your interior design firm in the digital spaces, SEO, social media, that kind of situation, Wingnut Social does just that. That is all that we do specialize in. As an interior designer myself, that is how I came to owning the agency from my own success for marketing what was Darla Powell Interiors when I was doing full-time interior design. My whole staff, I was going to say 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Sometimes it feels like that, especially when we're engaging for clients. My whole staff, 40 hours a week. That's all we do. We focus on the industry and the success of our interior design clients and getting discovered on social media and the Googles. So to find out more information about that, run on over to wingnutsocial.com. Hit that little Let's Chat button. Let's see if we're a good fit. Let's see how we can work together. I'd be happy to chat with you. All right, that is it for this episode. Remember, until next time, to get out there, get uncomfortable, and be great. Today, we're joined by guest Alex's Travels has taken him. It's just like it's like in my head. It's like picture like a factory. Like the sausage goes, the meat comes in, sausage out, meat in, sausage out. What would it mean to you in your bottom line if you could